All right, as soon as, oh, there she is. Hi, Gabby. Now that we're all here, it is 7:01, and I'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. Let me pull, sorry, I'm doing with a bunch of screens. Let me pull up our agenda for tonight. There we go. All right. Oh, and I don't remember who was elected as secretary last meeting. That was me. Great. Can you go ahead and do our attendance, please?
Sure. Hold on, let me hold it up. I was not prepared to do that, so if you can give me a minute.
Smarter than it looks.
I don't have a full list and I'm bad at names, so I'll try my best. Martin?
Here, I can chat you the list that I've got.
That'd be great, thank you.
Maybe. I'm not sure where the chat is on this function.
I don't see it either.
For sunshine law reasons, we actually disabled the chat because that is considered closed messaging and you can't have that in an open meeting. So sorry.
Hey, JK, I'll just call it, and why don't you record it? Great. Ashley Phillips?
Here.
Sveta Hammersley?
Here.
Daniel Trotter?
Here.
Gabby Flores?
Here.
Martin Newton?
Here.
April Jones? Bess Bailey is here. Yvonne Salinas?
Here.
Okay. Moving right along. The next thing we have is approval of our meeting minutes. Did everyone have the opportunity to review those before the meeting?
Yes.
Great. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve. A second.
All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Gabby. Moving on to any comments from the public. And did we have any emails or voicemails from our message box? Nope. Thanks, Anna. Okay. Going into old business. Does anyone have any updates that are not from different committees? Great. Man, we're moving right along tonight. Okay, let's go ahead and move into our discussion of our VESPA Equity Services vendors.
So I'll take this right now. I will introduce Tina Weaver. Tina, if you would like to introduce your team and begin your presentation.
Hey folks, my name is Tina Weaver and I'm actually pretty excited to see some of you that I haven't seen faces in a little bit of time. So it's nice to see you, although it may be virtually. Sooner or later we'll see each other in person again. Again, my name is Tina Weaver. My pronouns are she, they, and I am the owner and founder of VESPA Equity Services. We're going to get into a little bit of a small presentation here momentarily. Kim, can you confirm that you were able to share that document with this group?
So the one that you emailed me earlier today, yes, the PDF.
Okay, fantastic.
Hopefully you guys have received that. Again, that was something that you were going to probably have physically handed to you during the meeting, but because we flipped to a virtual setting, it was emailed to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kim. I appreciate that. So, folks, I am going to dive into a presentation here. So if anybody wants to give me their lovely thumbs up that they see the presentation. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. And I'll put it in presented format. Again, super excited to spend some time with you all today. Hopefully we can answer a lot of questions. We're ready to share who we are and how we can serve you, and really excited about this opportunity of what the city of North Kansas City is doing. The first introduction that I want to do is, including myself, we have Dion King, who's on the call with us today as well, and we're going to just do a brief introduction we've included some tags here that you'll be able to look at our websites a little bit more in depth if you feel so compelled. But one thing that I just want to emphasize before I pass the baton over to Dion is we recognize the value of what you're doing and how you're looking to really create a culture of belonging within the city of North Kansas City. My role here is really impassioned because as the most recent executive director of the North Kansas City YMCA for nearly 4 years, I was able to see a lot of what challenges that created opportunities within the city. And it is an abundant amount of challenges. And hopefully you were able to see some of that reflected within the YMCA. And I think that that was a critical piece to share with you all because I am committed to seeing us move forward within the city of North Kansas City. Dion, let me turn it over to you briefly so that you can do an introduction of yourself, and then we'll get into our qualifications as well.
Everyone could give me also the thumbs up to let me know that my audio and that you can hear me well. Thank you so much. I'm Dion King, as Tina has said and introduced, and I want to just speak a little briefly about the work that my firm provides and how that can add value to some of the things that I know that you've expressed on social media about just building a more inclusive effort. I am the CEO of DMK Consults. We are an executive leadership development firm. I have 20 plus years of experience in working in DEI, and many times I wonder if I'm crazy or passionate or a nice blend of the two. But when you're working and doing this type of work on a day-to-day basis, there has to be some sort of love and a devotion to really trying to figure out what it is that lends itself to be the inclusion piece for these organizations that I get a chance to work with. Speaking of organizations and companies I get a chance to work with, we've been able to successfully grow this firm from a regional to a national and now international effort. So we get a lot of experience and have proven results on leading change for a number of clients, again, across the nation and then now across the waters. And so we really specialize in providing a comprehensive professional development services for our clients. And many people say, well, what does that mean? It sounds fancy, but what that really means is as we are focusing in on diversity, how is it represented? Diversity means representation. And so we help you find a way to increase or upgrade the quality of the people and those that you will advance and promote. We also talk through and provide strategic plans for your inclusion efforts, which means how are you leveraging that representation that you have? And then the last piece is equity. Of course, we all know that's fairness, but we also have extended our work from not only fairness of opportunity, but advancement and promotion. And so that looks different in the 17 different industries that I get a chance to work with. The benefit of that is I am able to provide best practices that I've gleaned from all of those industries and can provide that to you as a client. And so that's one of the things that our clients appreciate is that specialized, tailored attention that they get to their strategic efforts is to no one's benefit to create a cookie cutter plan. And so we do specialize in providing a way to not only stretch your mindset on what DEI looks like in your industry, but also how are you as an individual taking introspective looks and growing in your own inclusion efforts. And so I thank you for this opportunity. The other thing I wanted to add that our firm provides is I am a certified mediator. And so I get an opportunity to work between, like I say, people that are cussing and fussing and provide communication styles and an opportunity for them to come to an amicable resolution. What that does is add value to my clients' service with DEI services, and I'm able to help you craft and have hard conversations, particularly with race and equity and gender. And so my clients also appreciate having that added benefit of how do we as leaders have crucial conversations or difficult dialogues that can help grow our agency. And so that's what we offer. And I certainly am very appreciative of you allowing me to sit in your meeting today.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful for Dion, folks. She has really resonated across the entire Kansas City community and across the pond. Now you hear it. So, with that being said, bringing her into this conversation, I found it was essential. It was critical because while I can provide DEI strategy, DEI recommendations in my 10 years of experience, in particular through the YMCA realm, I've built out strategic plans that have had intersectional value across all levels of dimensions of diversity. And that includes race, that includes ability and gender, much as Dion has. And her subject matter expertise has been critical in formulating what this could look like for the city of North Kansas City. I am very, very adamant on just emphasizing the importance of having the knowledge and experience in the value of what North Kansas City's diversity brings to the table. As the executive director of the North Kansas City YMCA, I saw that every single day, 40 different dialects spoken within our walls, and with the most diverse high school right across the street in the state of Missouri. Those kiddos walking into our walls and utilizing our amenities every single day. I take what I early on saw in the YMCA as something that we needed to create safer and healthy spaces for all minority and marginalized communities. And that was paired with a lot of efforts within representation in our workforce. You could see it within the collateral items that we would put on our walls. A reflection of our community was changed within the time in my service at that North Kansas City YMCA. And what I want to do is amplify that for the city. Take the impact that we made at the North Kansas City YMCA, how that resonated in our community, our immigrants, our refugees, our folks of color, our genderqueer community. All of the dimensions of diversities were represented. And I want to take that and amplify those efforts for you all across the city of North Kansas City. So in that, we've talked about ourselves and our qualifications for a bit now, and I'm going to pivot at this time and just talk a little bit more about the structure of the proposal and the goals the city has. And then I'll turn it back over to you folks just so that we can ensure there's time for questions. So as we move forward, we found that it was key to kind of bucket this work into 6 different categories. It could be, in essence, 5 to 6 different categories. As we look at the projects and the assignments of category number 1, this is really review and development. This is where we can build out what the plan is going to look like, but also utilizing our historical knowledge, the information of the EIC, and build this into a production plan. This is going to allow us to really delve a little bit further into our community, which would initiate our listening sessions. What that looks like for meeting with community members, our city council, all critical stakeholders in seeing this work come to fruition. And that can be paired with category number 3, a second listening session if you all deem necessary. But that again is going to be a component if we aren't able to gather the necessary information from our listening session 1. We would then extend that process, and that would be contingent upon the thoughts and recommendations of the EIC. When we move into category number 4, this is where we start really diving deeper into that community information and building out how our community sees and reflects us, and what are the necessary findings to develop a stronger sense of community from that perspective, but then again with the other critical key stakeholders, which is going to include your industries, our city council, our North Kansas City school. What a critical piece and component to all of this. As we move on into categories 5 and 6, this is where we continue with engagement, but diving deeper into what policies, practices, and procedures we can start analyzing and modifying with recommendations from DMK Consult, Dion herself, leading that piece. And then again into category 6, again, reviewing policies, handbooks, manuals of city boards, commissions and nonprofits within the city limits. And gathering that information to generate what we would say is recommendations. So through these 6 different categories, you're going to find there will be several layers of recommendations. What you all have requested in your RFQ is a fully comprehensive effort to ensure sustainability of your diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. We commend you on that. That is a position that we've really been excited to see happen and led by several leaders. Dion, did you want to emphasize anything on that?
No, I think you're doing a great job, but I love the fact, and I think what excites me the most is that there is already a focus in this area. You know, within the last 2 years, within the work that I've done, we've experienced a significant uptick of leadership saying, how do we reimagine, how do we redefine leadership? And I think this is one more advanced step towards doing that and being able to have, you know, strategic goals and plans set in place where you are masterfully, interculturally relating to people on a level that really helps to grow the culture that you're wanting to have. And so I'm just, you know, just overall, I think this is a very robust but a very doable plan. Is one that is a best practice for many more of my progressive clients. And so I like the way that you just sort of divided this out so it's an easy read and it's easy for people who don't do this work on a day-to-day basis to understand. So that's all I wanted to contribute with that part.
Thanks,
Was there
Dion.
something specifically also? I'd be happy to.
No, yeah, and we just want to also appreciate the city council, the EIC, and our mayor. We've seen what has pivoted over the past couple of years in this term.
Yeah.
And the efforts that are being made are not to be unrecognized. It is truly commendable. And I think that it's something, again, myself have an internal perspective of knowing what we positioned before to where we are now. I think that the needle is moving in a great fashion and believe that you all are building out something that is very special and could lend to being a framework for other cities to build off of.
Tina, I think that is well said. I just want to add on the very end of there. I think just as we are commending you all for even, you know, wanting to have something strategic set in place, it says and speaks volumes about you and how important this is to you, and that, you know, as you're growing, you'll be able to better identify the both intrinsic and extrinsic benefits. But I also appreciate the fact that you're willing to make investments in a plan that is tailored just to the needs and the blind spots in the areas of growth and opportunities of growth that you would like to have. There are, you know, we as professionals can tell when companies and organizations and industry agencies' efforts are disingenuous, or they've Googled a template, a DEI template off of the internet. And so I think, you know, you making a better, more advanced step towards having these strategic plans speaks volumes, and the community watches. I'm a part of the community, and just seeing this is a big step in an even greater and better direction.
Thank you, Dion.
Mm-hmm.
So folks, we know that today's a lot about what questions you may have. So I'm just going to pause and take my screen down and turn it back over to, I believe, Bess. I think that you're steering this today. But we just appreciate the time and ready to answer any questions that may be had.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the effort that you've put into something that we're obviously very passionate about. Does anyone have any questions from either the materials provided tonight or the previous materials we've had?
Daniel, I see you raise your hand. Do you want to go ahead and go first?
No, go ahead. I'll go next, okay?
Okay. So I'm looking at the PDF that you all sent out, and it looks like this strategic plan would be, is it 2 to 3 years, or is this a 5-year strategic plan? And then within those 6 categories, are you a part of that 5-year journey with us and seeing it through kind of fruition?
So what I would start off with saying, and I'll let Dion close this, is that the strategic planning session from this position is going to be accomplished early on through what we have in partnership with the EIC and other critical stakeholders that need to be around that table. And this is going to map out the next 2 to 3 years for you all. The other categories that are part of it will continue to play into the strategic plan, but be accomplished likely over the next, Dion, I'm going to lean into you on this. I think we said probably by December, January timeframe in that regard.
Yes, you are correct. Mhm.
There, actually, I would also emphasize that there is some ability to adjust this. We need to determine what we accomplish in each category. And is that fermenting something to advance further, or do we need to slow down and reassess? There's some opportunity to understand the nimbleness in this. We don't want to put such a strict timeline down, because a lot of this contingent with readiness of a community, readiness and communication, how we deploy this. And it's going to be essential that we engage all critical stakeholders. And you know, Ashley and the rest of this group, it takes time to engage folks. It takes a little bit more time to take them on a DEI journey. And we're not in a rush with that.
Thank you. Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you all so much for presenting. I had a question just about your all's experience consulting with government-related community or committees like ours on this specific topic. I know it's not a wide-ranging. There's not a lot of EICs out there that I know of, but just curious how many you guys have consulted with in this space.
Mm-hmm. Dion, I'll lean to you on that one.
This would probably be my first or second opportunity to be able to work in this type of space. But as I had mentioned earlier, I bring 20 years of experience in working across 17 different industries. And so, a lot of the value, a lot of the intrinsic and extrinsic benefits that I talked about earlier are transferable across industries, across agencies, and they apply well. One of the things that I pride the work that my firm provides is being able to not only assess where your blind spots are, and then be able to work from there. And so I just think that, having those transferable knowledge, but then also having the years of experience lends, I think any of my clients, it lends value to their DEI efforts. Hopefully that answered your question to the best of my ability.
Yeah, thank you. I am nodding along, except for my camera's not working. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I also don't know if I got a chance to mention this, but I think it sometimes adds a little bit more value when people understand the depth of work that I've been able to do. My background is in law firm diversity, and that's where I kind of got my true experience. And so being able to be a national diversity expert and being able to grow law firms, as you know, with the representation of different cultures just within each of their offices across the nation. And so that lends itself to provide the experience, again, that has, understanding the value, also the legal pieces for our organizations, how engagement looks and what representation looks like. Again, all of those things specifically are transferable. And so I think it fares well and will provide, definitely the leadership and the recommendations that you'll need for this project.
Gabby, go ahead.
Hi, Gabby.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? Good to see you.
Good. Good to see you. Thanks so much, Tina and Dion, for your presentation and for your kind of thoughtful, longer term helping us think through this. We are. My concerns are really about budget and how do we plan for this over time? Because I think we're going to have to chunk it out bit by bit, and are we going to have a cohesive end product, you know, if we have to take some time to budget for these steps. And so that's really my first question. My second question is really about the category 1 piece of it. Do you feel like that is a good starting point, stepping off point for us as a you know, living, working community group? Is that going to be enough for now to kind of get us rolling while we think as we have to think near term and long term, I think concurrently. So just a few thoughts. And I guess my question is, you know, are we going to be able to chunk this out over time from a budgetary standpoint?
Well, thank you, Gabby, for bringing that to attention, because, you know, I want to start off with saying we appreciate the opportunity to present with you all today. We knew our budget, and but I also want to emphasize with that was out of the scope of what you all had initiated. I want to emphasize there's a lot of value with what we bring to the table. So this work isn't something that is put and you all, I want to say this as tactfully as best possible. I don't believe that you all were shortchanging it by any means possible, but the robustness of and the magnitude of the work is much more than just that number, right? So I start off with saying that, and then Gabby, to your second part of your question, or maybe the first part of your question, I've built these into categories because we need to define where we're going to map this out. If you all choose us to be your consultants in this manner, it's going to be Dion and I sitting down and discussing a little bit more of a fruitful manner of what this would look like, and then building out another presentation to you. We've built these into categories so that you could get a better lens of how the deployment would look like, how the execution would look like. But chunking this out, we anticipated that. We also anticipated that. So while we feel like we can accomplish this by December or even January of 2023, this can be at a different timeline, at a different pace. Again, contingent upon what the city deems necessary and what our stakeholders deem necessary. But I do believe Dion and I are in a bit of consensus with this, kicking off with a strategy plan, a strategic plan to build out what our work plan will look like will be a guiding measure. That's a great way to start, but also knowing that when we build out these work plans, these strategy plans, they're modifiable. Okay. It's not something that we can't come back to and revisit, but it is a point of emphasis that these categories have some nimbleness with them and a timeline to match what the city's needs are. Dion, anything to continue on that?
No, I think you answered that well. The other thing, Gabby, that I would want to add, and that I typically start off with many of my clients is you really can get a better understanding after you've done your assessments and after you've done your surveys and done some critical conversations with your stakeholders. Then you can really get a little bit more clarity with that. Did that answer that, Gabby? You had two questions, and I think they paired well. And I think Tina did a great job of.
Yeah, I think both questions were answered. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ashley, I saw your hand first, and then we'll go to Anna.
Hi.
You did a great job answering that question, and then it made some more pop into my head to get clarification on. So, you know, I think that our group really have a sense of focus and vision. Some things need to be kind of like detangled a little bit and maybe a little bit clearer. But we really need measurable goals and outcomes. And it's, you know, going through the stages that you provided, it looks like you all will do kind of a current state analysis. You're going to do the surveys. I'm wanting to know, even kind of on the back end, how are we periodically going to conduct those surveys and assessments to make sure we're still on target and all those pieces. Will we have access to anything that you all are sending out into the community? Will we have access to the data? Will we be able to, you know, if you all complete this by December, let's just pretend things go so smoothly, would we still have kind of those documentation, those pieces to use maybe even in a year to kind of reassess.
Absolutely. My understanding is your question is, well, you will be part of every piece of information and have access to all the data points. And definitely, I think, one of the great things about this is we're all a team, and I'm not sure if we really did this, but maybe this is something we need to also add in, Tina, is just defining how everyone can champion these efforts and make it clear in that. And so, yes, to your point, Ashley, the short answer is yes, you will definitely have access to all of the information and all of our findings, but here's the other thing we may want to think about, and we will take your guidance on it, but there are times when people will be more comfortable providing feedback on how they feel, if they feel engagement and all, if they feel, a part of the whole. I typically do not say, Sally said this, Jeff said this. I'll put it more in a thematic presentation where it says if 2 or 3 people felt this way, so these are some of the areas that we need to target as some of our blind spots and areas of opportunities and growth. And so that's usually how I typically report out. Tina, do you see a different way of addressing a question?
No, I completely agree with Dion. We're going to have it in clumping those responses. There may be one outlier. We'll share that outlier with you, but we want to stick with the trends of the responses. Exactly. And those are what are going to be the targets for us. And then as far as that strategic plan, when I think about that, that is going to be your blueprint. That's going to be your handbook essentially for this work forward. And that is something that you all live, breathe, and survive on every single day. So that will absolutely be in your hands, and it will be a document that will be built back into your hands in a presentation format to where if you need to reference it, you have that. So absolutely.
Anna, it's your turn.
Hi guys, my name's Anna, and I'm the council liaison for the EIC. Thank you again for coming to meet with us. I know we all appreciate it. I know that we're all excited. I do have several questions, so bear with me. The first question that I have is to kind of piggyback off what Daniel had mentioned. Since you, although you said it is transferable, a lot of your experience with previous groups such as, the law industry, what do you find to be probably the biggest challenge working with a city government and then also a committee within a city government and all the different moving parts that are associated with that? And then
biggest challenge. Oof, okay.
And then
I get just one.
Right, because
okay.
one of our limitations is this committee meets, once a month. And then kind of to piggyback off of what some other people have mentioned, we do have, a budget, and it's kind of decided annually. And, I was a part of the group that approved that budget. And so I can kind of see where those limitations can lie. And then my other question is kind of for Tina. So when I look at the proposal and the pricing, the categories to me, I guess I'm seeing them more as phases than categories. So we would go through, category 1 would be phase 1 of kind of the proposal, and we would kind of carry that through, and then we would move on to category 2. So I'm not sure if I'm kind of reading that correctly or if anybody else also kind of read it that way, or if this is almost like individual parts that we can choose and pick from, and then based on kind of what we assess as our needs.
Dion, do you want to start off with your one big challenge thing that you've experienced?
I was sitting here like, I have 4 right off the bat, but if I were to just sum it up in one, I'd say this notion of compliance, particularly when you're working with the government, it sort of just gives a whole different feel of your DEI efforts and the motivation behind it. Then, of course, if I could do 2 and 3, the budget is always a concern, especially when experts like myself and Tina are not able to show you the value of it, people will start making decisions based on how much money they have. And so they don't understand that this is an investment, this is work, and this is focused work that requires experts to be able to assess it and do it right. Now, you could pay, you can get you a discount, and you can get you, a strategic plan that, many times people will get the smaller budgeted plans, and then they will sit it on the shelf. The 3-ring binder, it looks good, but it's on the shelf, and it's not something that you can apply to your day, as Tina was talking about, a breathable plan, but then also one that is blueprintable for other agencies to emulate. And so that's the other thing that both Tina and I will be able to provide. But just going back to the government, and some of its biggest blind spots would be definitely compliance. Sometimes there's not a genuine desire to implement DEI efforts in a strategic way. Then the other thing is making decisions off budget. There was another question. I forgot. I was so focused on your first one. Was there a second one that I can add to?
Yeah, so the second question is looking at the pricing per category. The way I kind of read it as is each category is kind of a phase in the overall plan. And so I guess I was looking at it as, if we were to complete category 1, that would be an individual project. And then we would move on to the subsequent categories, depending on what needs we saw for our overall goals. And I'm not really sure if I'm reading that right, or if anybody else read it that way as well. But the category, naming them categories to me is kind of confusing, because I don't know if that's almost like, here's a list of things you can choose from, or if this is kind of a comprehensive plan that you typically follow with each client.
Okay, yeah, I actually like phase better. What do you think, Tina?
Absolutely. I think the category has its own nuance and definitely can be modified. There's one category in there, category 3 or phase 3, that can be removed. So when we looked at that, I didn't want to be thinking about a phase that could potentially be removed, but it's a category of services that could be removed. So when we think about it, these are the services that are going to be executed within this category more so than anything. So if it's a moot point, I can definitely change it to phase if you want to look at it from that lens, Anna. And then the other part, I just want to emphasize one more thing. Dion and I's work within our professional industries has worked with a lot of board governance, right? So while you're operating under city governance, we've worked with board governance in which policies and procedures have seen adjustments through our DEI recommendations. Yes. These are things that are critical and require an extraordinary amount of time. And in that, the city governance is very interchangeable in that regard, but we need to understand the differences and value that as well. But I do want to say we do have experience with the efforts made to influence and adjust what policies and procedures have been in existence institutionally within some organizations for a period of time. My best example is the efforts that we made for the LGBTQ community at the North Kansas City YMCA, adjusting our locker room signage to not say family changing rooms, but just changing rooms. It was much more inclusive. My staff had pronouns on their name tags. We had LGBTQ family nights. We adjusted our intake forms on our membership forms to have beyond binary opportunities, right? So these are policies and procedures that we change to make a more inclusive environment. So I do want to give you that level of experience that Dion and I both have. And then, oh goodness, and I think, did we hit all 3 questions?
Yeah, so I think it was Gabby that had talked about this part, but with, I guess if we were to call them phases instead of categories, how do you see it kind of working as one comprehensive plan for us if we were to kind of pick and choose, or if we were to follow each category and do go through each of them, what does that really look like time-wise? Do we really think all of these phases happen in a year, or is this more of a 2-3 year plan? In your experience, what does that look like?
Yeah, so Dion and I were able to, and I apologize, my eyes are on screen. I'm looking at another screen to pull up our time responsibilities that were associated to this. And it was fairly extensive, to be quite frank with you all. In particular, when it came into category 5, or let's call it phase 5 and phase 6. When we're analyzing that information and really building out a better understanding of the current policies that are under the city and things of that, that's a lot of time. And Dion, I'm trying to find my doc real quick, but if you can enhance on that, and then I can give a firmer time frame on that.
Sure. Are you bringing up phase 4 and 5? I'm also trying to
I'm going to bring them all up. Yeah.
Right. So if we're thinking about it, if we go to just the phase 4, if everyone has that in front of you, just very quickly, if we're reviewing and proceeding engagement and DEI surveys, that in and of itself, if you've taken any type of engagement surveys, us being able to comb through that, assess it, and then follow up. Usually with my clients, they will appreciate about 2 to 3 meetings with leadership to get a fair understanding of what our recommendations are and what our findings are, and then being able to gather and generate the data, and then roll out the survey. So all of this information is helpful for being able to create the survey that we will push out to be able to not only assess engagement, but just take the temperature of everyone and all of your stakeholders that are involved. The next thing here, it says assess results and then formally generate a report. Typically, you want to make sure that there's quality time, but then also time is of the essence. Typically, it takes about a good 2 to 3 weeks to be able to generate a report. If we're working under some quicker deadlines, we certainly will take your guidance on that. And then the last piece on here with phase 5 is presenting the findings and facilitated discussion with leadership. And I found that to really be about 2 to 3 parts. Once leadership's get an opportunity to get the feedback, to get the data, there's a number of questions, and sometimes that will also redirect some efforts. And in my experience, I've also had some companies say, well, we want to add this part based on the data that we've received from the surveys. Did you want me to go on to the next one, Tina? I can't see you because I don't have 2 screens, so I'm just working off of
No, you're all good.
Okay.
And then just to piggyback off of that, with the policies, the handbooks and things of that nature, you're looking at a sum of about 200 hours on our effort to execute that phase, right? That's substantial. And then pairing that with a couple of other areas that are well over 100 areas in those 100 hours in those phases as well. This isn't something that is just collect and report out. There's analytics that are attached to it so that we can give you the best recommendations.
And Anna, let me also address it. The way you answered the question, I almost wanted to it's the way I ask questions with my teenagers, like, how much is it going to cost? And I need to know, is it worth it? I've had experience, working in law firms specifically, and I think you can appreciate this, law firms in and of itself is 20 years behind. So there's substantive work that's done with law firms, getting them up to par. But I've had the opportunity to hire three Deons, people that do the work all day, every day for diversity, equity, and inclusion nationally. And I will tell you that how we have assessed the time, how we have assessed the fees are comparable to many consultants. And so giving you these numbers are real numbers or true numbers, and we believe are fair numbers based on the experience I've had of being in your position where I've had to hire diversity experts and wanting to really invest in quality DEI work for a strategic plan.
And I really appreciate you guys breaking this down as somebody, you know, who votes on these budgets.
Yeah.
As part of the council, it's good for me to be able to see these and bring these back and really get a, you know, an actual look at what this truly looks like. Because for us, as a very new committee, our initial budget, you know, was kind of a guesstimate. We didn't know, you know, what we were looking for. We really didn't know exactly what our plan was and kind of what direction we were going to go in. So, you know, when you're new, you start small because you don't know how much it's really going to cost. So this for us is, while it might be much larger than we, you know, initially expected, we also, you know, in order to really increase that budget, we have to see what that number is going to look like, and also have a realistic expectation as to how this progresses.
Yes.
My last question, and then I'll shut up, is
Can I say
wanted
something
to-
on that, Anna, before you do?
Sure.
Because I think it's important for you to also understand, and that's the benefit of having consultants like Tina and myself. We were also able to help pare down what it is and say, well, you don't necessarily need this, and this is something that we think will be for later, will benefit you later. And so I think that's something that you'll also get with our services, is being able to direct you in real time on what it is, so that your investment is put into the best places that will serve, you know, for the purposes that you're wanting this DEI. So, you know, that in and of itself, I know Tina and I talked about it once we got the initial proposal and a list of things. We're able to kind of help also direct you on what it is you really need.
Thank you for saying that. And then my last thing is, I did want to loop in Casey Campbell, who's our head of HR for our staff on City Council. I don't know if Casey's on this call still or not.
I see your picture there.
Yeah.
Okay, and kind of see what that looks like in terms of working with the HR department and kind of dealing with some of the initial steps we've taken in diversity and inclusion with our diversity training and kind of where that starts, and then how do we get that extended to our community engagement? Because one of our issues within our community engagement is we do these surveys with the town and with the people in the city, and we seem to have not a great response. It seems like we have just a small group of people who respond to a lot of our surveys, and one of our efforts is, how do we get people to be more engaged, and how do we get them to care and to want to be a part of the conversation? And so I kind of was going to just see where your experience has been with that, with people who maybe, you know, don't know that this is something that we're promoting, and how do we get them in?
So I love this question, because what I think that we need to do, the approach that we need to take on this, is a very comprehensive approach to it. Our residents may be not responding to these surveys, right? But there's a lot of other critical stakeholders, and that's your industry individuals. And what I can say is, as somebody who's part of the North Kansas City community, I know where we can get stronger responses from, and that may create a little bit of legwork on our part. But having somebody in the community who is connected and familiar names and things of that nature, I think really lends an opportunity for a higher level of engagement. I'm not saying that I have like this extraordinary reputation in the community, but I do have a level of credibility that's been built, and that creates a level of trust, and folks need to know that. The city has the same level of trust, but I can make it a more personal touch on it. So that's one leg up that we may have in this regard.
Casey, did you have anything that you wanted to add or ask about kind of how do we incorporate kind of our current engagement amongst, you know, the current staff, and then also kind of extending it to the community?
Just the phases, like you said. I think the first phase is your strategic plan, which is great. And then if we move into the other phases, I think that's where we would get the staff involvement and the community involvement. But I don't see that in the beginning. It looks great. The proposal is great. I mean, it is an all-encompassing plan. Probably a much bigger than what we want to partake right away, I would think.
Right, which is why I think most of us will probably see it as a phase kind of process. And I think having you guys' expertise and kind of allowing us to, get feedback from you as to what, we do need or what needs you guys kind of see, because, you're seeing it from the outside perspective. We can only see it from our side. It's going to be very beneficial for us. I will not ask any more questions. I'll let the next people ask because I know I took up a lot of time. But again, thank you guys so much for coming and presenting to us. And I know we're all excited.
You're welcome. Yeah, we too are excited, and thank you. You had some very thoughtful questions.
Thank you so much, Anna. I want to apologize, one, for pronouncing your name wrong first, and then thank you for those questions. Gabby, I'm going to jump in. I've had my hand raised, so no one thought I was cutting the line, and then we'll go to you.
Yep, I saw that. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm thinking specifically about category number 4, community engagement, knowing that in order to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion within our community, we want to access people who might not have or might have gatekeepers such as language, internet accessibility. They might be unhoused populations. What strategies do you have in place to make sure that we cross those lines of difference to support a more inclusive environment, knowing that that is one of our major outcomes?
That's a really good question. I don't have an answer to that right now, to be quite honest, Tina.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that this is going to be a little bit of a process for us, but what I can say at this point in time is the gatekeepers are the critical agents in which we can engage. And you hit the nail on the head with that. I know as a white person working through DEI efforts, and I'm trying to work with my immigrant and refugee communities, I have to work with the folks that serve as those gatekeepers, but that's building that level of trust. And we have a couple of that built already within North Kansas City, myself personally. And I think that we can capitalize on that, but it's going to be a little bit of a process to engage other subpopulations that we may not have that connection with yet.
I figured my question was a little more logistics based and you might not have answers, but I just want to, that's one of our goals. Is one of our first things we did is we put closed captions on our meetings to make it more inclusive for our deaf, hard of hearing population. And that is one of the lenses I definitely want to consider as we move forward with any sort of survey distribution, excuse me, and thinking of the inclusive process of getting feedback so that we don't just hear from a echo chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can better answer those questions as we get into, the thick of it, being able to truly assess and then provide you some better resources on that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Gabby, go ahead.
Thanks, Bess. My question is maybe hypothetical a little bit. So, and just to give a little bit of context, the city is also in the process of strategic planning. So how would you envision phase 1 between now and kind of the end of the calendar year? Would part of your review include because what we don't want to do is create 2 plans that don't talk to each other. And so is there potential for ways we can make sure to crosswalk or to align back to however the city's strategic plan ends up? And then how would we, as part of phase 1, build in checkpoints along the way to just make sure we're both aligning our strategic plan, but also connecting back to the city? And is there, would that be every few months kind of thing to, kind of during this building phase?
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump in real quick. This is Kim.
Thanks, Kim.
The city has already adopted their strategic plan. They did that back in February. So that process is complete and published.
Okay. Wow. They did not waste any time. Okay. So I guess that would be some important, I guess, homework or pre-work that we would do as a council or a committee, because I honestly didn't know it had gotten that far. As we think about, kind of take what I would call our baby strategic plan, we just kind of have strategic stuff thrown out there. So thinking about our city strategic plan and what we have as aspirations for and aligning those. So thanks, Kim.
And I think really taking it from the position of this strategic plan isn't the baby strategic plan. This strategic plan is the foundation of all the strategic plans for the city. It is my lens on it.
Sorry,
And,
let me just clarify. I meant the council, the committee work that we've done for the last 6 months. That's the baby plan I'm talking about. It's kind of a jumbled mess of ideas. It's not,
okay.
yeah, that we just didn't get very far, and we realized quickly that we didn't have a skill set to, we have great ideas, but we didn't know how to get them into a strategy. So
Sure.
they're really inputs, I think, for your phase one.
Yeah. And I think that what you've mentioned, Gabby, is exactly what we want to see. These should be on the same highway with each other. We can't have one of these plans operating on frontage road. They need to be on the same highway, going the same speed, tailgating each other, because one is operating in tandem, in chorus with the other. So it will be critical to do a little bit of homework ahead of time so that the existing city strategic plan is influencing what the overall DEI plan looks like.
Yeah, that, when she said it's already been adopted, that just kind of raised just some questions. And you're right, I think that was well said. That is something we would have to add in to make sure that what you're wanting to have is not ancillary to the overall picture. And like you said, it runs in tandem with what's been adopted. And so we didn't think about that. We didn't have any knowledge of that, but now we have some new things that I think are going to be a great challenge to see how we can make sure that it's not ancillary to your overall plan.
Thank you both.
I don't see any more hands up. Are there any final questions for Tina or Dion?
That went by really quickly. Wow.
Well, thank you guys again so very much for the thorough work you guys put together in the proposal and coming tonight to answer all of our questions. Really, really appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, folks. We appreciate it. And we look forward to hearing from you sooner or later.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Question for you, Kim. What are our next steps now that we've heard a little bit more from Vespa?
So I'll kind of review this committee's budget. So this committee has an overall budget for fiscal year 2022 of $10,000. So and that was authorized by the city council. I have no ability to adjust your budget. That must go through the city council for a recommendation and for any type of approval.
Do we still have that full amount?
I do not believe so. I would actually have to go back and look because I think you guys have drawn down on this year's fiscal budget. Again, I don't have because I'm talking to you guys on the computer. I would look up your financial status side, and I'm not too good at doing those two things at once. So I could have run you guys' budget numbers and email them to you to give you more of a point of time of where you're currently at on your budget. But I do know that you had plenty, you had enough for what was initially thought of for this particular scope of work, which was the first scope of work to put together your strategic plan, which is $7,500.
Yeah, so I think we probably took a chunk out with the flag and then I assume the t-shirts will also be coming out of that budget. Is that correct, Kim?
Correct.
So we'll have to kind of look at what we have as a remainder and then see if we do need to go to council for a potential, budget amendment.
Daniel, then Gabby.
Thanks. Yeah, so just lots of thoughts. I didn't know if we wanted to unpack some of the stuff that we just heard right now. I mean, I think now is as good a time as any since it's fresh in our mind. We're not again, we're not going to meet again probably for another month or so. But yeah, just with that being said, are there any reservations about discussing what we just heard? Or everybody? My initial thoughts, and this is just kind of, I mean, I think the reality is, I don't know if it's our committee's prerogative, to spend that level of money, just the amount that was quoted, just what has been outlined. I think, when you think about city government and you think about the public space that we're working in, a lot of us are here because we share very similar passions to what Tina and Dion have. We very well don't have their level of expertise and experience, I don't think. But at the end of the day, we're volunteers because we are working on a city budget and we're working in a public space where things like this are sensitive, and but it's obviously a need that we have in this city. But those are just some of my initial thoughts. I just want to know if anyone else shares that, or if we. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the help that they would offer would be paramount. We would learn a ton, and we could probably get something that's amazing. I just don't know if we'll ever have that level of money that to plan out a full year of someone's time who works in the private sector and can really make a lot of money. It's just kind of a tough balance, I think.
Am I next, Beth? Sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
You are.
Sorry, lost track of hand raising and such. I think that I really feel like we might need a work session to talk through this a little bit more openly and candidly. I just want to share that I feel like having gone through a similar process with an organization recently, the cost is not wrong, but the order of things is wrong, meaning that the organization that I went through this with, we hired a similar consulting group. They did all the assessments first, right? All of the listening sessions, all the assessments and the data collection happens first. You build your plan from that. And that's why I'm a little, those are my reservations, I think, is just because I feel like we don't, it's gonna, I mean, I think we could get some really great work done for $7,500, but those assessments and timing wise, that the organization, I would say that I know that they had planned for like an 8-month implementation process, and they're now in month 18. And so I'm also, and that was so much data collection, and the plan is taking longer, engaging leadership's getting longer, and so I'm mindful that, maybe the initial strategic plan, the $7,500 plan, helps us map out the other things, and then it's time for another strategic plan cycle again, right? So it's chicken egg kind of thing. So, but I'm just not sure that, and I think some of the things that they have programmed in, and I like Anna's comment about phases. It's almost like an a la carte menu. Like you can choose to survey the community and the staff and everybody, or you can choose a smaller sampling of folks, right? So I think that it will reveal a lot for us to make this initial investment of phase 1. And I think, to Daniel's point, we'll learn a ton to be able to help inform future budget and budget asks that we make of the city as we move along. So I just think that we might need a little bit of a work session to hash out some of these things before getting them a response. That's it.
Ashley, thanks, Gabby. Ashley, go ahead, and then I will go.
Okay. Yeah, I want to answer a little bit to Daniel and piggyback off what Gabby's saying, and I'm going to keep it short. I have the same kind of reservations, mostly because I see one of our bigger needs is being able to define the desirable, measurable outcomes. Like we need to have targets. Like we want to see a percentage of the population be more aware, like we need more tangible items. And Anna, I think the question that you asked about, or maybe it wasn't Anna, but how are we going to engage a community that is already so diverse? And they didn't have an answer to that. And I don't know if they have experience with that. And so when I think about us purchasing that first phase, I almost think if we're not going to be able to kind of follow through or at least pick a little bit more a la carte, I don't know how relevant that will be, so to speak. Hiring a statistician is significantly cheaper than kind of this process. And I think I might lean on to Kim or Casey here. I know that the city already sends out surveys. What would it look like for us just for this first round of really trying to get a strategic plan? Us in a work session come up with what we want to see being surveyed, and whether we try to find somebody to pull those stats and maybe make sense of them all. It feels like their service is big leagues. And I feel like we're little league right now. And that's okay, because maybe in 5 years or 2 years, we might call them back up and say like, now we're ready. But I think to get started in a work session, I think we can. I think this group is able to identify measurable outcomes that we want to see, and complete that survey piece, which is going to be huge. And Gabby, like you had said, normally that's the beginning phase. It's like we're identifying what the need is in the first place. And I think when this committee started, it's been anecdotal so far, and we don't have numbers or stats to kind of back that up. But I think that we could turn whatever the city's already doing to survey or poll the community. We can do that as kind of like a pilot piece. But I'm definitely in favor of a work session to continue this discussion and maybe have some delegated assigned tasks. I love research. So like, pulling some of what the community is already doing, what YMCA is already doing. But I think doing that first before we kind of proceed is where I stand right now.
I'll defer to Kim regarding the survey. She completed the last one.
Hi. So yes, we budget for the city overall. It's a satisfaction survey, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't interweave questions. We did complete that. It was completed. It was in budget fiscal year 20, I believe, which means our fiscal year either 2023, which is the one I'll actually begin writing here pretty soon, or fiscal year 2024 is when we will incorporate the funds for that as well. We use a firm, we'll do a request for services, but over the last several years, we have used one that is really world renowned for benchmarking within city facilities. We have done our last survey through that particular company for the last several years. So we have some historical data, and the benefit of that is saying, is the bar moving in the right way? Long story short, very quick way to say that. They give you a nice, robust answer that is a lot more formal than what I just said. But really what it does is it helps you plot lines over multiple years. I kind of like the idea of incorporating questions that this particular committee may have, because what that would do is weave it into the long-term lens of the city, which is, from what I am hearing from this committee, one of their goals is to weave in a lot of the things that you guys would like to see done into the other priorities of the city. I hope I'm not speaking for you.
Really fast, Kim, I love that idea. And in the work session, I think we could brainstorm some more. Are the languages used, are there translations in that survey? Is it just in English? That's going to be one of our barriers. So I just want to make sure that if we're saying that that's an option, that it's going to be inclusive for all language spoken.
So it does have options. There are a couple of different ways that this particular survey is administered, and really what that is to make sure that it is statistically valid, meaning that it is not open to everybody within the city. There are two different phases. So there's a community survey, which is open to everybody, and then there's what's called a control survey. And what they do is they take our population and they try to make sure that they have representation from every node within our true population. What this does is it makes sure that you're not counterweighting responses, meaning that say you only get responses from people from 18 to 25, and that's not a true representation of the age spectrum or the high school completion or even the geographic area of the city. They actually map these to make sure that we are getting representation from all the wards, not just one area of town. So that is kind of some of the things that I particularly like about that particular service is that it is the controlled survey is really it's statistically valid within 2%. So again, what they do is they take your true demographics and they try to make sure that the respondents match that. Now, where I'm going with this is, so if they are under some of those numbers, they actually have bought some of that data. So they begin calling. So if the letters don't work, they begin calling to make sure that their respondents true match your profile. So to answer your question, it does have to be within multiple different languages, because again, what they're doing is they're working off of your true census numbers. So if that particular respondent isn't English proficient, then they do have other mechanisms so that that person can respond to that survey to make sure, again, that we're getting a true spectrum of what North Kansas City actually is. I'm happy to answer any more questions. I'm nerdy on this.
I think I just need to like verbally process, which I will be very quick about. It feels to me that this proposal is better suited for a large scale government strategic plan and creating that rather than creating a smaller committee. And because of that, I think I agree with everyone else. Like, while I would absolutely love to do all this work, I don't know how much of it feels like our place rather than like figuring out what community engagement looks like, which I don't want to undervalue their work, because I think it would be fantastic and I think it'd be such good information for North Kansas City to have, but I don't think it was the scope we were intending. And I think because of that, I do think we should kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit and in a work session figure out, well, what is the scope we're actually looking for? Whereas like part of our strategic plan, baby plan that Gabby was talking about is us doing the audit of hiring practices, looking at verbiage within ordinances and things like that, rather than having an outside company do it, is initially like what we thought we could do. So if this were to happen, like, I don't know how much, what our role would be looking like for the next few years. Gabby, I did see your hand up.
I took it down because I have a lot of nerdy questions about the survey instrument and just, you know, because I totally hear, you know, what Ashley is saying, and I heard it earlier in your question, Bess, about, you know, survey instruments are only really great for majority folks who are middle class, speak English, and housed, and you exclude a lot of other population, and that's my worry. And then Tina mentioned a couple of times, like really engaging the business community as part of our community, and I don't know that survey does it include the business sector. It sounds like it's really just residents and inhabitants of NKC, but I'm just
I'll jump in real quick. We did pay for a dual survey this last time. So we actually ran a resident and a business, and we challenged that particular company to make sure that it had the same statistic valid. So we pulled all of our business industry to make sure they were getting responses from the appropriate industries within North Kansas City.
Great, thank you for that. But I hear what you're saying, Bess, about the scope of work, and yeah, I hear you. I am also kind of just chewing on things, and I feel like we may need to sleep on it to come up with a decision, and that might need to happen in a work session kind of think through, do we try phase one? Do we put it back up for bid? Do we hold our cards? Do we, I just feel like there's so many pieces we have to kind of weigh to determine really appropriate next steps with stewardship in mind. We've been given a small but mighty budget, and we don't want to blow it on something that's going to lead to like a Cadillac, so just being candid about that. So I hear what you guys are saying, and need to probably sleep on it and think about it and percolate a little bit more.
Any other comments or verbal processing necessary for this proposal? Okay. Kim, do we need a motion for a work session, or can we just decide that at the end?
Did you guys want to try to do you guys have your calendars handy? Is that something you wanted? I'll be honest, calendaring, I find is the hardest thing in the world, is to try to get everybody on a similar night where a room's not already taken. So if you guys, there's no motion needed. You guys aren't taking an action other than to direct me to try to find, a date and time for you.
Great. Is everyone ready to calendar now, or at least propose some times? Okay. We typically meet on Thursdays, which we have found to be very helpful. Kim, what are the Thursdays that are already booked with meetings?
So we have coming up Thursday, the 17th, which is St. Pat's Day. I'm not sure if anybody has plans on that. The next Thursday would be March 24th. I'll be honest, I have a conflict, but I think I could get Casey or somebody there that particular night. And then this is kind of an odd one where there's actually 5 Thursdays this month. So there's also Thursday, the 31st. And all 3 of those Thursdays that I mentioned, at least in the month of March, there's no conflicting meeting. You could have the main room.
Kim, I would love for you to be able to attend, because I feel like you will have all the wisdom on the survey tool that you guys are currently using. And I'm sure that we'll all have a lot of questions. So would the 17th and 31st, it sounds like, are both open?
Both of those are open for me. How are you guys?
Their date would be my preferred.
Which date? I think you're muted. I'm so sorry.
It's so embarrassing. I did that earlier. I did that earlier in class today, which was very embarrassing. Either the 17th or the 31st would work best for me. Our school's spring break is the 24th, and I'll be out of town. Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, the 17th would work best for me. The 31st, I'm out of town, out of the state. The 17th or the 24th would absolutely work best for me.
Yeah, I'm good with the 17th personally.
So it sounds like there's the
Yes,
least.
I'm hearing a consensus here. Okay. What I will do is 6 o'clock.
I know that's hard for Gabby. Would 6:30 work better?
6. Well, actually, I take that back. Next week is our spring break, so I don't have to work late. So I can be here by 6. Yeah.
Great. I think we've in the past done about 6 to 8 unless we wrap up earlier. So that would be perfect. Thanks, Kim.
No problem. And then just to recap for everybody, so they remember, we do not broadcast work sessions. I have secured the room for you though.
Wonderful. And do we need to publish an agenda for that?
We will absolutely need an agenda for that.
Okay. Daniel and I can make that happen. Okay. Moving into our, Ashley had a question about EIC presence at Snake Saturday, which will be very chilly. Ashley, go ahead.
It will be. I'm going to keep this short, and then maybe we table it for our next full meeting. It just kind of moving forward with events, I know Anna, you had sent out for the Black History Month, like the choir thing. Like, I just love how we're having more opportunities to show up in the community. And so I kind of use Snake Saturday as maybe just like our kind of template of how do we want to represent ourselves and how do we want to be kind of getting out in the community, supporting our community, supporting the businesses that are participating and whatnot. I didn't really have a solution. The only thing I could think of is when we wear our t-shirts, and that kind of like helps stand out. But maybe next meeting, we can talk about, I would love to see maybe a live document of upcoming activities for EIC members to attend, and maybe have everybody, like if you're able to attend something, you put your name there. So we at least know that like one person is able to show up. I was thinking, Anna, about the one that you offered. I couldn't go, but I was like, I hope somebody made it. And so that I'm just going to plant that seed, and then maybe next meeting we can talk about how to just make sure that we're showing up for the community and know about these events if we can ahead of time.
In the past, we've used a calendaring app to have our presence at like the Friday night summer things. Obviously it's not summer, so I don't know if that's been the forefront, obviously not mine, but it's definitely something we can discuss even as part of the work session of like creating what that calendar looks like. Moving into any committee updates. We're going to skip North Kansas City United until our next meeting. Any information that we need for the newsletter or to include in the North Kansas City connection document, which the next date of that is, Kim?
So Daniel's already given me the latest article, and that will actually be going to press this week. So that will be in homes at the end of March, and it will be good for the next 3 months. So I will send out a reminder when the summer one, and that one will be August, September, October. So I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I will make sure that I share what those deadline dates are with this committee.
Perfect. Thanks, Kim. I didn't realize it was already upon us. And then the last one is we discussed in our last meeting supporting North Kansas City's high school's multicultural festival. Do we have any updates on that?
Yes, we do. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Reed Pierman reached out to me, and I'll read a short email that he had to say. Hi, Martin. Kim Nakahuda gave me a contact information and told me the EIC would be interested in helping with multicultural festival we are doing at North Kansas City High School. We need some volunteers. We are wondering if a couple of members would be interested in having an informational booth at the festival to track about the EIC and what you guys do. This would allow full creative liberty for however you want to present it. Some of the booths from our students includes displaying cultural clothing, live food demonstrations, games, storytelling, blah, blah, blah. We are still getting more and more booths, but if you guys would be interested in having one, that would be great. Our setup would be lots of booths all around the area of the school and in our black box food and beverages. There will also be talent show with performances. Just a reminder, it's from 5 to 8 p.m. March 30th. Okay, another thing that would be really helpful for us is to having people to handle food. We want to keep it sanitary as possible. 5 or 6 people would be ideal, but as many as you want to send would be fine. No more than 10, please. Other than volunteers, as many people that want to come are totally welcome as guests. It will be very fun. Let me know, and thank you so much. I responded to him and I said, Reed, we would love to be a part of this. The EIC has discussed the festival and we were anticipating your contact. It just so happens we have an EIC meeting scheduled for this coming Thursday, March 10th. Let me present your request to the committee for discussion and promptly get back to you the next day, which is tomorrow. So in a nutshell, maybe a booth that we could do and maybe a couple of EIC members to support any questions that they may have, maybe the staff at the North Kansas City High School or students. It's known, I guess, that it's a super multicultural. I think more so than any high school in the state. I think that's fascinating, actually. That's pretty cool, right? Right here in our backyard, right here, like 3 blocks away from where I live, basically. I think that's pretty cool. So there it is out there. So if anybody want to discuss or show it with me, I'm available on that day. I go out of town the following day, the 31st, but on that day, it just so happens that I'm available, and I would love to go and support them and actually represent the EIC. If anybody want to come along with me, or everybody want to come along with me, that's cool. And I just want to know, like, what do you guys have to say about it? Anybody have to add anything to it, or anything that, any advice, basically, or anything I need to take if I go, or set up booths and so forth and so on?
Daniel had your hand up first.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think I'd be available that evening too, but I'd be happy to do the food handling. I don't know if we need like a certified, whatever the certification is you have to have to handle food, but I don't have that, but I could do it, and I wash my hands and
Right.
wear a mask and all that stuff. So
Okay.
let them know I'd be happy to help there.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, me too, Martin. Just, you can go ahead and share my contact information with them if that's necessary, but I'm happy to help and happy to table if we choose to do that.
Oh, got you, Zeta. Okay, Zeta.
And I'm also able to help, Martin. This is Gabby.
Okay, Gabby.
Yep.
I got you.
I do have I might just be a wee bit late because I have to give a presentation, but will our t-shirts be done by then? And will we all be wearing our NKC t-shirts?
That would be cool. That would be cool.
That would be cool, but I don't know if they will be. Based on Yvonne's face, I'm thinking they're not going to be.
We have our little badges, don't we now?
Yeah, we do.
Go ahead and add my name to that list.
Okay, got you, Ashley.
If you could add me as well, that would be great.
Okay, that's great.
Martin, I can't attend due to a work conflict, but we do have our flag that we can take, and some of the other stuff we ordered. It's in the City Hall storage area. Kim can help you to see where that is because she showed me where to store it. So we can take anything that's there that has any of our logos and stuff and take that with us.
Okay, sounds good, Anna. Thank you.
Gabby, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think that was a false alarm.
Zeta?
Yeah, I was just thinking, if we do table, would that be an opportunity for us to do some impromptu survey taking, or just like some feedback taking, just put an iPad or something, or like with a Google form, and we can just collect people's comments if they have them?
I love that idea. I can create a QR code as well. So that way, they can come to the table, scan the code, it automatically pops up to their phone. I think once again, this is where we have an opportunity to, if we want to create a very basic template, making sure that it's translated in different languages, and then also having paper copies, not just the electronic copy. And you said it's on the 30th. And so I think I don't mind kind of going ahead and starting to work on some of those pieces, and then maybe at our work session I can slide in so you guys can review, or I can send it out via email.
I'll go ahead and put it on our work session agenda so we can discuss it. If it's not on that agenda, we can only have 3 people collaborate on it and give feedback. Okay. It sounds like we're all going to be there, which is wonderful. Anna, you will be missed, but it sounds great. If we want to come up with some outfit to wear, we can definitely all be matchy-matchy, which I would love. Any other committee member comments?
Guys, I'm so sorry. I do. I will make it so fast. April 5th, Election Day. This is where I think that in the strategic plan, we definitely need to add something about helping community members, whether it's get to the polls, whether it's know information about the polls. Of course, this upcoming election, we will not necessarily have the time or resources to help with that. But I think that when we talk about looking at policies and procedures, helping people get registered to vote, helping them know when it's election time is going to be a big one. So I wanted to plant the seed for the April 5th election coming up. And then in a work session, Anna, you might be able to jump in if I'm giving misinformation, but there was mention of a hotel motel program that the police chief presented. And I love, so far the program has a lot of pros, cons, all that. I just think that this committee should definitely just have eyes on it and just kind of help oversee making sure that it doesn't discriminate against any certain populations, any marginalized populations. And I think helping the council understand kind of implications of what that might bring to the community. I'm not saying that I have any negative feedback or anything like that right now. I think that it's just something for us to be aware of. And then maybe I can send out the link. You guys all have access to the work sessions that they do, but if you haven't had a chance to watch that work session, maybe go back and take a look. That way we're aware of what's going on in our community.
Yeah, I can give you guys kind of a quick synopsis if you weren't there, and then you can obviously go see it if you haven't had a chance to listen to it. But basically, our police chief did a overall kind of presentation on where they get the most calls from with the neighboring motels and hotels to see if we needed to come up with some additional measures to take to kind of limit how much time they're having to spend at some of the specifically some of the motels due to just different disturbances. And so they broke that down to us. We have not finalized anything. We're still, based on our work session, going to kind of take all the feedback that we gave Kim and Chief Freeman regarding kind of what we want to see. And then it's more going to be from a city standpoint, from a police force standpoint, providing education and training and different measures to kind of assist the hotels so that they feel safe, so that they feel like they can manage the different people who may come into there, to not only, you know, limit the law enforcement burden that kind of has happened in those areas, but also make the people in the area feel safe, because we've had some unfortunate crime disturbances in the last few weeks. And so that's where these efforts are coming from, but it's still, and Kim can correct me if I'm wrong, kind of in the earlier phases as to what we're going to do going forward. So this was just like an initial work session to kind of get the numbers, get just a general idea of what this really looks like.
Yeah, so I can jump in real quick. We're actually meeting with all the hotel providers right now so that we get a better understanding of from their perspective. Again, the work session was really kind of very large, broad strokes. Policies like that are implemented in other cities. Again, what it is to help, should there be a crime happening at that facility, do we have the information, as well as one of the outcomes is limiting the amount of times a single room can be rented within 24 hours. So again, some of it is, you know, making sure that they have correct lighting in the parking lots. What do the access controls of those rooms look like? You know, is there working locks on all the exterior doors? Because some of what we're finding is that may not be happening. So a lot of it are more from safety for the residents or visitors inside of those facilities. The direction that the city council did give us, they give us some overall kind of thoughts, and we are meeting with those hotel providers, and we have been asked to come back so that we can kind of more narrowly and clarify what would be brought forward for formal consideration.
Thank you all so much. Any other comments? Okay, then we'll move into any community member comments.
This is Casey. I just want to talk a little bit about the diversity inclusion training. It is moving along. We will present it and get approval from the city council on Wednesday, April 6th. And then start working with the provider on getting that rolled out. So if you want to put on your to-do list to work on, I'd love for you guys to come up with a memo or note that will go out to all, to the city council and to the boards and commissions on this being good for them to participate in, because we're going to give them the link to be able to do the training. We can't assign it to them, but I think if it comes from you guys, it'll be more impactful. So just put that on your to-do list.
And then just to clarify, it will be required for all city employees. That's where kind of Casey's going. For the boards and commissions, we would love for you guys to write a letter, maybe strongly urging.
Correct.
Bess, can we add that to our work session agenda?
I was going to ask when it would be helpful to have that by.
Casey,
Sure,
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know how fast from authorization of contract to deliverable, that I don't know.
It's going to be within a few weeks of 4/6. Once we sign the contract, it'll be a couple weeks before it's up and running and rolled out.
Okay, but it does sound like we should work on it in this session. Got it.
I hate to be negative Nelly, but do we want to work on it? It's a little presumptuous to assume it's going to get approved. Should we just wait until our next regular meeting in April to work on it? Just because I don't want to jump the gun and jinx it and not get approved. This
particular item was adopted as one of the things that the city council would like to get accomplished within fiscal year 2022. One of the things that we wanted to do was work with this body on who the best vendor would be. So I'm hoping I'm not overstepping my own governing body here, but I would hope that they would approve that this would not be something that would not be approved. Again, we discussed this actual particular item at both budget work sessions and at the budget adoption.
Okay.
So it's not new. They've known it's coming.
Keep muting myself. Go ahead.
Just wanted to change the subject real quick. If we could decide on a color, we could possibly, Anna, maybe order the shirts and maybe try to get them by the festival.
Sure. If you guys want to just send me an email with your size in the next day or two, and we can get the ball rolling. Does anybody have a preference for, we have gray and purple. Are those the two that we decided?
Yeah, the gray and the purple. Yeah.
You want to do like a grays for color?
And so it's just two options, right? Either gray or purple as a group.
Right. I think it needs to be unanimous.
Okay.
Do we have a t-shirt color motion?
Does anybody want to make a motion for a color?
Gray.
I say gray also.
All in favor of gray?
Is anybody against gray? Okay, we will go with gray.
Sounds good.
Great. So action items for Leadington.
Number, yeah, I think we're gonna order 130 shirts, different sizes, I believe is what the email says, but we can work that out later. So
Okay. Yeah.
okay, cool.
Let's make sure we at least get our sizes kind of submitted. So if everybody wants to let us know what your particular size will be, and then if we're lucky and we can get them for the festival, then maybe we can hand out some of those to some of the people as kind of a welcoming thing for us to be able to do.
Right. If people wanted to do the survey, we could definitely do it as like a raffle towards the end of it. Awesome. Okay. Well, then it is 8:38 on 3/10, and I call this meeting to a close.